As we all know, we're in the time period of the Ben HaMitzarim, in between the tragedies, the days between Yud Zayin Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, and Tisha B'Av, the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. And it's known as the 3-week period, even though technically it's 22 days, but it's known as the 3 weeks. And it's a time of national mourning over Zeichel Churban, over the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, which culminated on Tisha B'Av. So there are different, we're familiar with the laws of Avelis, of mourning on a personal level when someone loses a loved one. One of the 7 relatives, so there's halacha of Shiva. We all know there's the time of Aninas, the time period between the death and the burial, where the relatives are involved with taking care of the burial. They're patur, they're exempt from mitzvahs. And then there's the burial, and then the Avelis begins after the burial, and we begin the Shiva period. So there's a Shiva period, a 7-day period. Then there's Shloshim, 30 days. And then there's Yud Beis Chodesh, a 12-month period. And so Rav Soloveitchik pointed out that really we have the opposite when it comes to national mourning. He considers the 3-week period a time of Yud Beis Chodesh. It's a time the laws of Yud Beis Chodesh apply. The 9 days, Mishan Nichnas Av, Mamatim B'Simcha, when Av comes, we minimize our joy. That's the status of Shloshim. That's similar to 30 days. And Tisha B'Av, where we sit on the ground, etc., as the dinim of Shiva. So the Rav pointed out that we go from, when it comes to personal Avelis, we go from chamor to kal, we go from stricter to lighter. 7 days you don't leave your house, you sit on the ground. Shloshim, you go out, you leave your home, you go back to work, but there's still different things you don't do. And for a parent, you have Yud Beis Chodesh. You only have one mommy and daddy, so you have a 12-month period. So we know that when it comes to personal mourning, you feel it right away, and hopefully time heals, or the new normal. So hopefully from 7 to 30, etc. However, when it comes to national mourning, the goal is to shed a tear on the Churban Habayis. So we can't just show up Tisha B'Av and start crying or start being miserable. It doesn't work. We got to prepare ourselves, like anything, like just like before Rosh Hashanah, we have the Elul, we have the 30-day period before. We have the 30-day period before. The red light's still on. So just like by Elul we have a 30-day period to prepare for Rosh Hashanah, so too when it comes to mourning, the Churban Habayis, so we begin with the 3-week period, then we pick it up a drop, no meat and wine and some other prohibitions during the 9 days, and then you have Tisha B'Av where you sit on the ground, etc. So when it comes to national mourning, it's a process. You got to work yourself up, so that needs time. So that's how Rav Soloveitchik categorizes the 3-week period as Yud Beis Chodesh. It's comparable to the 12 months. Then you have 9 days compared to Shloshim, and Tisha B'Av to Shiva. Not everyone goes with this category. The Rav Soloveitchik was a brisker. They're into categories. You can't make up a new concept. But over here, So he says each one has to fit under one of the Shiva, Shloshim, Yud Beis Chodesh. However, when it comes to other opinions are that the 3 weeks are mentioned in the Gemara, Yud Zayin Tammuz it's mentioned in the prophets. But the 3 weeks isn't mentioned, it's known as the Ben HaMitzarim, those are only Minhagim. So other poskim say the different Minhagim are picked, it's not categorized in Yud Beis Chodesh, Shloshim, etc., but it falls under different realms. And there is no strict comparison. So either way, the different customs are brought down not to do during the 3 week period. And one of them is not to get married during this time period. The minhag is not to get married. In fact, there's a machlokes Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Soloveitchik regarding the night of Yud Zayin Tammuz, meaning this year Monday night, the night before. Is one permitted to get married? Because we know we don't start fasting until the next morning, until Tuesday morning. Yud Zayin Tammuz in the day. So what about getting married the night before? So Rav Moshe Feinstein was lenient. He said in a time of need, one is permitted to get married. Just like he also says by Lag BaOmer, the night of Lag BaOmer.
There are weddings.
Yeah, based on Rav Moshe. And Rav Soloveitchik and others are Machmir. They say no, the 3 weeks begin at night. It's just that the fast doesn't begin to the next morning, but you can't get married the night before. So the different minhagim, those who are lenient rely on Rav Moshe, and there are many who do. And the Magen Avram extends this, and really the issue of weddings isn't really a din of Avelis, isn't really a din of mourning, because really halacha is an avo himself, let's say after Shiva, he hasn't fulfilled the mitzvah of Pru Ravu yet, he wants to get married. So the halacha is when you're an avo, you're allowed to get married. So how could it be that if an avo could get married, but 3 weeks you can't? 3 weeks is only a minhag. So that's what the poskim say. It's not really me'ikar adin that you can't get married out the Isser of getting married. It's more, this isn't the time for you want to start a new life together. The 3 weeks haven't been a great time in Jewish history. So it's more out minhag that all beginnings are critical, and you want to get off on the right track, so don't get married during this time period, which hasn't been the greatest. So it's not really a din of Avelis, because an avo can get married, it's din of this 3 week period. This actually also find by Shechiyanu. An avo can make a Shechiyanu, yet there's a minhag among some not to make a Shechiyanu during the 3 weeks. Again, assuming you make a Shechiyanu to begin with, because as Rav Moshe writes, today we live in a global fruitopia. Not that long ago, you used to only get fruits in the season. You only get certain fruits in the winter, summer, spring. Today, for a couple of extra pennies or dollars, you can buy just about any fruit any time of the year. So Rav Moshe writes, he thinks really saying Shechianu on a new fruit doesn't really apply today. Why is Shechianu the excitement of having something new? What's something new? We eat fruit, we get all the fruits all year round, so we're not so excited anymore. So Rav Moshe is not convinced you should make a Shechianu at all anymore on a new fruit. And Rav Soloveitchik says something similar when it comes to clothing. Like it used to be, you buy a suit when you got bar mitzvah and you get a wedding. That is it. Maybe if you're lucky, one more time in your lifetime. Today you have the Sims Bash, you have the Seals Amor, Harry Rosen, wherever you go shopping, people get suits all the time. So therefore the Rav thought also today, you don't really need a Shechianu today, because people don't get, maybe you buy a new car, depending what car you get, maybe on something real big once in a while. See, right, so Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, things that happen once in a while, Shechianu is a sense of excitement. So some of a minhag, but really me'ikar hadin, some say if you can make a Shechianu even during the 3 weeks, and that's what the minhag is. If you can, some say to make the Shechianu on Shabbos. wear the new suit on Shabbos or maybe on a Rosh Chodesh, etc. But so we see also Shechiyanu is not really a din in Avelis, it's a din in a time of it's a Zman Prinias. So the Magen Avram extends. So we know some people say you can't listen to music during the 3 weeks. Where does that come from? There's no mention in the Shulchan Aruch about not listening to music during this 3-week period. So some might erroneously conclude that means it must be okay. Well, you can't conclude from that anything, because the reason why the Shulchan Aruch doesn't bring down you can't listen to music during the 3 weeks is because the Shulchan Aruch paskins you can't listen to music all year round. Because it goes back to a Gemara in Gittin. The Gemara in Gittin talks about Zeichel Mikdash. We know at a wedding we break the glass. You've seen fiddle on the roof or whatever. You break the glass. A Zeichel Mikdash. There was a discussion in the Gemara. See, all these things during the 9 days we don't do a Zeichel Churban. The Gemara spoke about not having meat and wine. And the Gemara goes to a whole discussion at Heichad Magia Sov. Where do you end? You can't eat anything. So it was too much for us not to take away meat and wine all year round, other things, so we don't do it. But during the 9 days, if Ashkenaz have that custom of not having meat and wine. But they point out that where does music come from? So really, it's a machlokas, the Rambam and Tosas and the Gemara in Gittin. The Rambam learns that Gemara Zeichel Mikdash. We don't listen to music all year round. Of course, at weddings and Sudas Mitzvah you're allowed, but stam, to listen to music, go to a concert, that's prohibited according to the Rambam. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. And that's the opinion of Rav Moshe Feinstein. He was very machmir. He says he thinks the halach is like the Rambam, and that was apparently it must have been his practice. If he says not to do it, I assume he didn't do it. And he felt it was prohibited because of Zeichel and Mikdash. How can we listen to music? The base of Mikdash is not up. It's not appropriate, and therefore, except for a mitzvah purpose, one is not permitted to listen. That was the opinion.
You wouldn't know anything of the class.
Exactly. And however, that's a machlokas. Tosfos disagrees with the Rambam, and Tosfos says no, you can listen to music. It's only you shouldn't go to a bar and drink wine and listen to music. Having wine together with music, that's too much simcha. But and there's a further discussion within Tosfos whether it's a dafka only wine, but let's say I'm having a whole meal, and part of my meal I'm having wine. So some would say that's okay. In fact, many years ago there was an issue with hashkacha where this place served wine and they wanted to have music. So the question was, could you give hashkacha? Because even Tosfos says you can't have wine and music together. So there was a whole discussion, whole tumult there. But Saturday night everyone was in agreement because Malava Malka, it's a mitzvah to have, so it wouldn't be an issue to have music Saturday night. So there are 3 shitas. The Rambam, it's never okay. Tosfos, it's okay, just not together with wine. And some say, or any time you're having a Suda, depending how far you take it. So the Ramah paskins like Tosfos. We assume it's permitted to listen to music all year round, except for those special circumstances. So Rav Moshe writes, he thinks we paskin like the Rambam. Even if we don't paskin like me all year round, he says, at least during the 3 weeks, Zeichel Churban, it's not appropriate to listen to music. That's what Rav Moshe writes. Other poskim say no, nothing doing. It's like we don't paskin like the Rambam all year round or the Shulchan Aruch. We don't follow the Shulchan Aruch by the 3 weeks either. And Meikar Adin, there's no problem with listening to music. So where does it come from? The Magen Avram brings the Chumrah, one should not, it talks about weddings and he talks about one should not listen to music. So again, so what was he talking about? Live music, concerts. That's very interesting if you notice many of the concerts in the Yeshiva Shavelt are during Chol Hamoed, because it's a mitzvah then, because some, to be Choshesh V'Shita's Rambam perhaps. Exactly. And the only other time there's a concert is the Has concert. That's for special kids. That's also a mitzvah. The money is going for those special kids. So perhaps that's why they have it, because they go, you can't this time have a concert, only with Tzarach Mitzvah. So the Magen Avram's time, they didn't have tapes. We don't even have tapes anymore. It's hard to find tapes. Try to explain to kids about what those old things look like, the whole big record players. It's hard to find tapes anymore. Today you have CDs, everyone has an iPod, an MP3 player. So someone said, even if you go with the Magen Avram's Chumrah of music, that was live music, but today it's only taped, that's not a problem. So others say no. The CDs and MP3s are the same halacha today. They create simcha, and therefore you have yesh v'yesh. You have a machlokas among the poskim whether this chumrah during the 3 weeks, does it apply to CDs or MP3s? And there are some who make a compromise. They make special CDs. I think it's called a cappella or something, where they only have people singing without the music. So again, this is a different minhagim during the 3 weeks. Me'ikar adin, if you go, Rav Moshe thinks you shouldn't listen to music all year round, but even if you don't follow him for the 3 weeks, we basically pass him like Tosas, so there really is no difference between the 3 weeks, but we have the Chumrah and the Magen Avram, and some extend it to music as well. The Rav was more lenient, let's say, if you're listening by yourself. Like the Rav in general was against Simcha Mereis, publicly. He thought it's the din of Yud Beis Chodesh. You don't go to, when you're in Yud Beis Chodesh for your parents, you don't go to public gatherings. So he thought to go listen to music, call people over and play music. That he didn't go for. But you're driving in a car, you're at home alone, you're listening to music. That was okay. In fact, that was because he holds that wasn't the prohibition. So therefore, you have different mekilim during the 3 weeks, and perhaps even maybe the 9 days. The closer you get, 9 days Shur Shachalbo, people get a little more machmir. But because the Me'ikar Adin Gemara, the Gemara only talks about the week of Tisha B'Av. This year it's not too long, because Tisha B'Av is Monday night. So all we have is Sunday and Monday. And that's for Svardim, that's where the Ikar Din Gemara about not eating meat, that's really the week of Tisha B'Av. We're machmir, we start the 9 days, and we have other chumras in the 3 weeks. I'll go back to the Rav in a second, because there's another minhag of not to taking haircuts during the 3 weeks as well. And haircuts, we assume shaving as well. Haircuts and so there's a bit. The only difference between haircuts and shaving is the reason why we'll see we're more lenient by shaving and not by haircut, because haircuts should take once every 3 weeks. So don't plan your haircuts. You could go 3 weeks without taking a haircut. But shaving, we'll see people shave every day. So we'll get to. So what about shaving during the 3 weeks? So they bring down. So again, Rav Selevan says it's not a problem, because Rav Selevan said the 3 weeks have a status of Yud Beis Chodesh, of when you lose a parent for those after 30 days. The first 30 days you can't shave, but after 30 days you're allowed to shave if someone tells you you look like a menuvel, you look disgusting, you need a shave, pal. And in fact, maybe looking in the mirror is enough, or someone not telling you. That's a discussion. But Rav Selevan says during the 3 weeks you're allowed to shave, because it's the Yud Beis. Rav Moshe was machmir. Rav Moshe said no, you can't shave during the minhag is not to shave during the 3 weeks. He said if you have to go to work, for makam case of loss, Rav Moshe says fundamentally the minhag is it's asur, but he says if you have to go to work or scenarios you're allowed to shave. The Rav says you don't need a heter, you're allowed to shave during this time period. That's very interesting. It comes up, let's say a person forgot to shave, and it's Monday night, the night of Yud Zayin Tammuz. As we said, the beginning of the 3 weeks. So we said, when did the 3 weeks begin? So according to Rav Moshe, they don't begin to the next morning. According to Rav Selevan, they begin the night before. So according to everyone, you could shave the night of Yud Zayin Tammuz. You came back from New York, it was already nighttime. Could you shave? So according to Rav Moshe, you can shave because he says the laws don't start to the next morning. And according to Rav Selevan, he says you're allowed to shave anyway during the 3 weeks, so it's not a problem. That's what getting to the Rav Selevan, let's say going to a game, going to a Met game, a Blue Jay game. So again, according to The Rav, he was more makbid about not going to public things during the 3 weeks, because it's Yud Beis Chodesh. But according to Rav Moshe, it wouldn't be a problem. So I said, if you want to go to a game, then you can't shave. You have to go to a game unshaven, because Rav Moshe says you can't shave, but you could go to a game. And the Rav says you can't go to a game, but you could shave. So he says those are the laws of the 3 weeks. In fact, I had a shiloh yesterday. I got the shiloh. It must have been Sunday. I was in New York, and someone was giving a shiur between Mincha and Ma'ariv, and I was speaking on this topic. And someone came over to me and said, "I finished Shloshim this week." I think it's today. He told me he finishes Wednesday, and during Shloshim, you can't take a haircut or shave. You want to know? Because I just gave a shiur about how the minhag is not to take a haircut and shave during the 3 weeks. He wanted to know what could he do. So I told him he could take a shave and he could take a haircut. Because the halach is, because it's obvious why it was during Shloshim he wasn't able to take it. I told him he should take a haircut before the 9 days, preferably sooner. But I told him he could shave and take a haircut. Well, haircut anyway, shaving he have other heterim to do. But I told him he could take a haircut now up until Rosh Chodesh because everyone knows, he was an avo and he's not permitted to shave. So in that situation, he even permitted to take a haircut. Kind of like probably if you just got out of jail and you didn't have any, like they talk about by Chol Hamoed, if it's obvious why you couldn't do it, and it's a case where you really need one, so perhaps there's some grounds there. So we pointed out, so some of the customs of the 3 weeks, as we said, is not to get married, and that's more because it's not the appropriate time to begin your new life, so to speak, during this time of semi-mourning. But strictly speaking, an avo can get married. And the Magen Avraham extends it to music. He only was talking about live music. So that we said that's a machlokas all year round. Could you listen to music between the Rambam and Tosfos, the Mechaber and the Ramah? So we are lenient all year round, or we should say most of us are. So the 3 weeks, and some have different minhagim during these 3 weeks. I'm not listening. Certainly everyone agrees not to go to concerts and listen to live music. The question is whether, listening to CDs and MP3s, so then, some postsmen are machmir, they treat cassettes and CDs just like live music. Others say, no, it's different. And others say, if you listen privately, not in public, so it's okay. So there are more grounds to be lenient. So weddings and haircuts we pointed out. And then, as well, the Shechiyanu. And then the other halachas of the 9 days, the Mishnah says in Tainus, Misha Nichnas of Mim'atim B'Simcha, that when the month of Av approaches, we minimize our joy. We have the contrast. We all know what month do we expand our joy. Misha Nichnas Adar Marbim. When the month of Adar comes, Purim, we expand our joy. So the opposite is true in the month of Av. What Tisha B'Av is Misha Nichnas Av B'Atim B'Simcha. We minimize our joy again. And the minhag Ashkenaz is not to have meat and wine except the Sudas mitzvah. We have on Shabbos, or someone makes a siyam, that we don't have meat and wine during the week on a regular occasion. Again, that's not a halakha of an avel, because an avel is allowed to have wine. An onain cannot. The time period between death and burial. I don't mean if you're the one dead, you don't have to worry about it, but the relatives who are taking care of the burial, they can't have meat or wine because they're supposed to be osek in the kfura, be involved in the burial. And even today, we have a chevra kadisha, and they take care of most of the stuff. Nevertheless, most of the poskim also assume you have to make phone calls, you have to prepare a eulogy. So most poskim assume the exemption of pater min mitzvahs is not only an exemption, but we assume an onain cannot do mitzvahs. That applies even today, even though we have a chevra kadisha, but there's still plenty of things to do. So in fact, an onain can't have basar v'yayin, but an avel can. In fact, the Chazal tell us That's one of the purposes wine was created, to menachem the avel, to comfort the mourner. You're going through tough times, it's okay to have a little drink. And in fact, that's what the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, before they executed someone, Misas Basin, one of the things they did, they used to give him a drink in order to, not to make him drunk and totally not know what's going on, but to dull the senses a little bit so it shouldn't be as painful, whether it's the mental anguish, the physical anguish. But the Gemara in Sanhedrin and Nigbar Din goes over the process of someone who, in terms of the execution, we try to do it right away, not today. You could be sitting on death row for years. We assume that's mental anguish. Once Beis Din gives the psak din, you have to kill the person right away. You can't have him hanging around thinking, in fact, I remember when I went to California, I spent a couple of summers there learning in the YULA Kollel. So I went up before to do some touring, and I went up north, up the coast, many things. And I spent actually, Shabbos in San Francisco. And actually I remember going to Alcatraz, going on the boat, I was freezing. Because you think summer, I could figure, it's warm weather. In fact, and I was reading, I opened up a book and I saw a quote from Mark Twain, who said, my coldest winter ever was summer in Frisco. And I felt what it meant, even that, I thought it was going to be, shorts and t-shirt weather. I was wearing like pants and shirts and I was freezing, especially on the boat. So I remember I did the Alcatraz trip itself, going inside, but also on the boat. So one thing stuck with me, that because you walk through, they give you these Walkmans, or maybe it's CDs these days, and you walk through and they take you through it. I remember they were interviewing some of the prisoners, and when they were discussing so one person he said, what was the worst part of being in Alcatraz? The worst part was on a sunny day, a clear day, you could see the beaches in Frisco, and you could see the people running around in the beaches, and you're stuck in a cell, and you see the freedom. That was the most difficult part. So, the mental anguish. So here also, that was to give a person a little wine, a little drink before, and you don't have them sit around on death row for a year thinking about that, I'm going to be killed, I'm going to be executed soon. So to here, the meat and wine is supposed to be, at least the wine is to menachem the avel. So therefore the custom is not to have meat and wine, because we're taking away our joy, mematim b'simcha, and get into other things of laundry and other things. And ultimately, then it gets into Shvua Shechobo, the week of Tisha B'Av. This year it's only Sunday and Monday, because Monday night already is Tisha B'Av. And Tisha B'Av already is a time of Shiva, time of we mourn, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. We go sit on low floors, we dim the lights. We all have a din of an ani, of a poor person, and we read all the kinos, all the lamentations, trying to feel a little bit. It's a whole process that we begin the 3 weeks, and then we move on. We minimize our pleasures through the 9 days, Shua Shechob, and ultimately on Tisha B'Av, to try to feel the churban, something that we're missing. And it's very hard to feel you're missing something when you never had it. It's one thing when you lived during the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and you never had it, and you had it, you know what you're losing. But now it's very difficult to feel the loss when you never had it. A similar situation is like people who are born after 1948 don't really know what it's like not to have Eretz Yisrael. We take it for granted to a certain extent. Of course we appreciate it, but those who lived before 1948, probably even before, when you're old enough to know what it was, and you know what it was not to have a state of Israel. And now that person really feels the distinction. We all know the power of contrast. And that's what we have, Pesach night as well, that we talk about. We don't just go straight into our freedom, but we talk about our slavery, because to fully appreciate freedom, you got to know what being a slave is. Or we try to appreciate sight, But someone who was once blind and now could see, it's a totally different appreciation. You don't really know what light is unless you know what darkness is. So the power of conscience, so we can't know totally, but that's what we read in the Kinos. We try to get the feelings of what it used to be in the glory days. We don't know what Simcha is, only in the Beis HaMikdash, and that's why we have a whole process. We work on it 3 weeks, 9 days, Shua Shechavah, and a whole day of saying Kinos and mourning on Tisha B'Av to try to get that appreciation of Churban Habayis, to try to appreciate what it means the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. And we're still a couple weeks away, so maybe Mehera Yibana Beis HaMikdash, maybe we'll be celebrating the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash by the time Tisha B'Av comes along. Hopefully we will. If not, we have to start. Well, right now we're in the process of mourning it, and we're in the 3-week period, the Ben HaMitzarim, and we minimize our pleasures and we think about the Churban, and we'll get into more about the 9 days in Tisha B'Av in the next couple of days.